All right. So you should be able to go over now. I've got the meeting up and take a look over there. We got a few minutes yet, so we'll have some people join us, I think. Yep. Here's another disciple. Okay. Two of you I know are saved. I'm here in the upper room. You're my disciples. You want to have plenty of disciples in the event that the Romans have you pick a straw. Yeah. Who'll be thrown to the lions first? So there's like 1,000 of you, you know, your chances are much, much lower. There's 100 of you, not good. 12 of you, really not good. Okay, we're here, and I'm going to go ahead and start a little bit early. I'm sure we're going to have some people come in. We're over here on week 3, and we've got the case follow-up, and that's over in pages 244 to 46, and then a management decision problem. And I give you a choice of which one you want to work with, 3.8 or 3.9, and then an exam over Loudon. Now I have a what I call a curated resource, and we'll go over there for just a moment. And this is from a TED Talk, and it's with the founders, with one of the founders, Reed Hastings, who founded Netflix, and his thoughts and his philosophies about that company and what he was doing. So I would encourage you to go over and take a look at that. It's a good resource. And part of what we're talking about this week, I'll go back over to the modules section. We're talking about privacy, and over in the New York Times is a good, New York Times is a great source of business information. They have 2 really good sections. One of them is their business section, and then within the business section is a section that covers mergers and acquisitions and those types of related activities. So it's well worth your time. The text section is pretty good too, and there's a text section over there. There's in the text section there was an article talking about privacy and how this has just kind of exploded onto the scene. Here's one on apps, phone apps that are related to getting your medical data. And then some of the antitrust investigation really doesn't have much to do, but this is an article about the fines that was levied, the fine that was levied on YouTube over child privacy violations. Okay, now I'm going to go back over here to the modules and over on that case on can we trust big data. That's over in pages 244 to 246, and I'm going to search over here, and it's 244 to 246. So I bet you it's going to be in chapter 4, and then we'll talk about some of the concepts over there in chapter 5. And 244, I think, is the page. It's going to take me there. There it is, the case study. Can we trust big data? And it should open up for us nicely, but it's not. Little weasel. And we'll go back over. I'm still learning to navigate my fancy book here. So we're in chapter 3. And I think maybe chapter 4. 3. Find that case study here in just a second. I should have just gone ahead and taken the case I want to give us. And let me see what it's on Facebook. Okay, try big data. All right. I'll just find out. My apologies. I learned how to bookmark these before I do this. Now, and there's the case study. And the authors are going to walk you through some of the basic concepts that are used in big data and what those are in when they talk about entities, attributes, metadata, and all of that. And they give you some information about how much data we're cycling through every year, etc. And it's a good case because it's the case really does put us into the dilemma. It brings to fore the dilemma that we have in terms of big data allows us to do a lot of things. First of all, it allows us to look at the external environment and learn a lot more about it than we would otherwise. In addition, it lets us identify customers and the kinds of needs that they have as expressed by their behavior, not necessarily by what they tell us. Customer surveys are notoriously bad. On the other hand, if you have click data, you really do know what those folks did, and there's all kinds of information there about the various types of applications that have emerged and the specialists. So this is a good case to take a look at, and it will be up to you to ferret through all that and talk about your take on whether it can be trusted or not, okay? Now, the authors do a good job of supplying you two viewpoints of this in terms of what positives that we have when we use these tools and some of the negatives that are created, especially the privacy issues. So that's a good case for you to chew on. And like I said, you'll find plenty of resources. This is one of them in terms of these issues around privacy and big data and the types of information that get collected on people. Then you also have the management decision problems, and you can work on either problem 3.8 or 3.9, and I've given you what I'm after here in terms of each of these. What I wanted to do is to spend some time looking at in chapter 3 in terms of strategy. Now, as I've said before, this course is a little bit like a telescope, and it's like a little bit of a telescope and a microscope in the sense that you're going to be looking at really big picture kinds of questions and issues, and then you focus on down to more nitty-gritty operational kinds of things. But the key part of this textbook, okay, and that is Porter's competitive forces model. That's become the model by which we try to understand how a company does strategic planning. And if you haven't taken the business policy course yet, I would assume, I hope, if you take the business policy, that you learn about Porter's 5 forces theory. Now, there are 2 different types of approaches or concepts or assumptions about strategic planning and strategic management, okay? One of them is this, and it's what we call the organic model, or I call the organic model, and that is our company has people, technologies, know-how that gives it a competitive advantage over those folks who we compete with in the industry, okay? That's that's an organic kind of that says that my competitive advantage is rooted in the people in my company and our processes and the resources we have, etc. The Porter model is completely different. The Porter model says that your environment, i.e. the industry in which you operate and some key issues around that industry, dictate whether certain strategies will work or not. So the authors here take that concept, Porter's competitive forces model, and apply it to the use of information technology. Now, they're going to walk you through basically this model. And here in figure 3.8, it shows you those competitive forces. You may have seen this before. I hope you have. If not, I'm wondering why not. But if you look here, you're going to see the firm versus its competitors. And then you have these 4 forces that are shaping how your company interacts with competitors. And that is new market entrants, substitute products, suppliers, and customers, all in the terms of their relative bargaining power. Okay? And so as the authors say, okay, we have to look at this, we have to look at information systems and how do they contribute to company strategy? Well, the bottom line is that wherever we can augment, deal with these challenges, the better off. And I'll show you, for example, I'll try my little animator, little drawing thing. Let's take new market entrants. Okay? I can use information systems that are externally scoped or externally oriented to identify new competitors. I could monitor SEC filings, for example. I could monitor state databases for incorporations, and I could also, I can just scour I can have a bot that scours the net for me that looks for a particular type of product or service I provide and see what pops up. There are a number of ways I can use information technology to identify these new market entrants. Okay, and of course, the question becomes, if you've looked at Porter before, is this: how difficult is it for them to get into your market? What's the capital hurdle? Is it highly capital intensive? Is your market highly regulated? Is your market highly regulated? Okay? Colleges and universities, since the 1960s, really the 1950s, basically have operated like a monopoly. They have zero, I've always said this, and I've been a college administrator at several institutions, said, you know, it's really hard to mess up a university, to run it in the ground. First of all, you have this regulatory wall between you and anybody else that might want to sell learning. And then number 2, you have price inelasticity. And if you don't believe me, look at how much you pay every year and the increases you eat, okay? And you'd think, well, people would quit going to college because of the price. Well, some people have, but because we have this thing called a subsidy, which is also known as grants and aid or scholarships, then people go to school. The percentage of students in your age cohort who go to school is far, far, far larger than the number of people, the percentage of people in my age cohort who went to college. Most people in my age cohort, you didn't go to college. You went out to tinker and got a job. You went to the tech. You learned how to be a mechanic, a plumber. You got a trade. You joined a union, and you usually made more money than the people who went off to college. Then some things have changed culturally, where we started to denigrate the value of physical labor and look down on people that we need at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'll tell you what, when my plumbing's out at 2 in the morning and the plumber shows up, I'm on my knees saying, I am not worthy. Because with all my degrees, I can't fix the plumbing. okay? Or I need electrical work done. I've done everything else in the house except plumbing and electrical, which I will not touch because I don't have a license and I don't know that much about it, and you can really create some problems. I have put myself through enough hell on earth putting in floors, putting in drywall over areas that shouldn't have been drywalled. You name it, I've done it. So this is one of the issue of what's the relative bargaining power or the power of new market entrants. Early on, and I'm going to talk about the industry of higher education, there were people who were trying to get into trade schools, for example, or trying to get into the education business, in the higher education. And they were naughty and got their hands slapped. And then came along a company called Apollo Group, which is also known as Phoenix University. And they said, we're going to have a strategy where the campus is going to be where people work. So what Phoenix University Phoenix started doing was they'd hold classes at business, out in the office, business office centers. Who wants to drive into a campus and fight the traffic and all that if you're a 35-year-old account manager and you just want to finish your degree or you want to get an MBA? Why would you do that? You just go down the hall or you drive to the next office complex and there's the class. Then it was really changed when the big money came into the equation. I was working at a school out in Arizona called North Central University, located in Prescott University, Prescott, Arizona. We were a virtual university. We were fully accredited by ACBSP, accredited by a Higher Learning Commission, and I was the Dean of Business and Technology, and we had about 5,000 students, and we were primarily a doctoral university. And every time we add another 500 students, the guy who owned the place would throw a gigantic party, and we'd all get big bonuses. And after this happened for all, I thought, this guy's not the altruist that he seems to be, because first of all, this is a for-profit organization. He's grooming us to sell. And I was right. About 2 months after the light bulb went on my head, people would stream through and he'd stop at my office and say, how many students do you think you could handle? I said, as many server blades as we can buy. And it was true. We had students from all over the world. I'm not sure about what they're doing there now. I had faculty from all over the world, and the doctoral students would come in, and to add, we would let the students, we'd have the students choose somebody who was an outside expert, and then when they came to defend their dissertation, they'd fly into Prescott, and we'd sit down with them with their dissertation, and they would do a defense, just like I had to do when I did mine. And I remember I had a guy from, I won't name the university, but he came in for an accreditation visit, and he was really snooty with me, and he told me, he said, you know, your faculty don't really spend all that much time with your students. And I said, well, I can tell you this, I went to the University of Oklahoma, and I had a little bit different experience than other people, but most of my colleagues said if they had spent 5 hours with their advisor in their entire 4 years, they were lucky. And usually it was something their advisor wanted them to go do, get some data, or edit something they were going to submit for publication, etc. So I said, you know, I'm not quite sure, but I said, we'll do a test. I'm going to take your dissertations, some pulled from yours, I'm pulled from mine, I'm going to sanitize them, I'm going to put them down in front of you, and I want you to tell me which is which. Well, he wasn't so arrogant the next day because he couldn't discern which was which. He kept saying, well, this one's obviously from my school, and it was from ours, higher quality dissertation. So the big money that came in, and the man who started North Central, I think he started with maybe $100,000, and he sold it for tens of millions of dollars. Liberty University is another one of those who is breaking that paradigm. We got 80,000 students. Goodness, there's Southern New Hampshire. If you watch the TV at all, you'll see these ads from these schools, and they're just gigantic. Well, what is it that they're doing? Well, they've gotten accreditation, and now what are they doing? They've said there's some people in the world who don't want to sit in a classroom and listen to me. They want to listen and look at the material when they want to. And so I put my toe in this thing of trying to do a hybrid format to just see how everybody would react, especially the administration. And woo, they get a little nervous because they believe the only way you can learn is literally if you're sitting in a seat in this building. And the good Lord knows that's not true. Well, substitute products. Here's another one of them. Okay. And the best example for that would be the folks who were in Texas Instruments who made calculators back in the 60s and 70s were selling those things for $300 or $400 a piece. A calculator, a business calculator. Well, now they're all over the internet if you want to use them, and you can go find them in the dustbin at Walmart, or you can probably buy a business calculator for 50 bucks. So substitute products. Well, how would information systems help us deal with that? Well, we might be able to comb through sales records where our client decided to use another company, or sales figures that scream out to us saying they're not doing business with us anymore. A really good example that, and this is why I hope that you'll go out and take a look at that interview with the guy who founded Netflix, Reed Hastings, I think that's his name. Listen to what he says about how Netflix changed over time, but they became a substitute product so that now they stream, and Amazon streams live, a lot of stuff live, and then saves it so you can binge watch. The major networks are coming around. Substitute products. I remember when I was your age, there were certain albums that the stores in Oklahoma City, music albums, would not sell because they had girls that weren't partially clad, or maybe some lyrics they didn't like, but they just wouldn't carry them. So I had a friend that he lived up in Missouri, and he'd go up to St. Louis and get every record I wanted to see and bring it back, and I could get all the albums I wanted to hear or listen to if I cared to listen to them. So that's all stopped. All of that the streaming services. The other thing, for example, in substitute products, this is related to information systems. Streaming sports events. Now, if you have a phone and like I have Fox Sports Go, which means I can stream anything I want to that they're offering up, a football game, a baseball game, I can live stream it and see it. Sometimes the quality's not great. And on a phone, it's not that big of a screen. But I don't have to care if Cox Cable carries my team anymore or not. Wife and I watch the Cardinals, watch the Yankees. So we get the Yankees through the Rangers, and through Kansas City, we get the Cardinals because they're carried a lot here. And of course, how well those two teams are doing in as regards to playoffs is the amount they'll be viewed. But if I can't get the Cardinals on the TV here, it's simple. The TV, my Cox TV, it goes off, and I start streaming from Fox. And one of these days, I'm going to call Cox and say, I've had enough. Bye-bye. I'm going to cut the cord. Some of you probably have. I just don't have the courage yet to do it. And I get such a good deal from them at this stage of the game. I'm going to stay with it. Suppliers is the same thing. Again, information systems helping us understand who are the vendors out there and how profitable are they. If I'm dependent upon a company that makes stuff that I assemble and they go bankrupt, or the tariffs are killing them, it's going to impact my business. It's going to impact it significantly. And then obviously with customers. So Porter's competitive forces model is one that we lay over information systems, and we say, do our management information systems support dealing with new market entrants, substitute products, suppliers, and customers? To what extent does it help us in terms of that leverage, which are the forces that drive my company's strategy? Now, this is just off the top of my head, and I don't remember where I read it. But if I'm not mistaken, and again, I'm talking about the university industry when I work in higher education. I think there are about, I'm saying somewhere, I think there's about 12 to 15,000 universities in the United States. A fraction of them are universities that have 2,000 to 3,000 students or less. The odds of their survival in the next 25 years depend a lot on them. If they don't find a way to answer some of these big schools, when someone tells me, and I've had faculty go, we don't compete with Liberty University. Yes, you do. You just don't know it. We don't compete with Southern New Hampshire. Yes, you do. You just don't know it. And as they get that scale, and as they improve their technologies, and trust me, they can get the best faculty possible because they can work from anywhere. That's going to be tough for little schools, and a lot of them are not going to survive. Or the way they'll survive is it'll be as much like a resort as it will a university. When I was your age going to school here, we didn't have the Rock. We didn't have all this stuff. Go Week was a way for the seniors to torture us. And then, who knows, there probably could have been 1,000 lawsuits if it was done today. The cafeteria, you guys go there, it's this nice cafeteria. You even have a Chick-fil-A, right? I go there. In my day, it was you lined up and they slopped it on your plate just like you're in prison, and you ate it. Before that, they had dinner in the dorms, and gentlemen had to wear a coat and tie to dinner. If you didn't, you didn't eat. That was my brother's era. But now you have welcome week, and you got all this, all these fancy buildings, and I've seen the dorms over there look like it's something, look like you're at the Ramada Inn or something. If you've been in the men's dorm, is it like that still? I had bunk beds and like a cubicle. Is it still those small? Or have they made it different over there in the
bunk beds? Yeah, they changed the bunk beds a couple years ago.
Okay.
But you got like a dresser.
Yeah, I mean all the events and stuff you have going on, you know, we didn't have any of that stuff. We had, you know, we had a weekly drunken party from missionary kids who were away from their parents for the first time, stuff like that. Otherwise, we didn't have all these we didn't go events, we didn't have go trips and all that stuff. So every little school is going to have to figure out, how do I survive with these behemoths that can offer virtually any kind of programming that's accredited with faculty from anywhere in the world who are really outstanding, and delivered in a way that is so good it's just scary. So again, we layer this template of the competitive forces over MIS and trying to use it to determine how do we deal with these forces. And this really is, in many ways, the heart of this textbook. And if they're not supporting those things, then for all intents and purposes, your information system is just a waste of money, because that's what it's intended to do, or it should do. And the authors do a nice job here of walking you through and explaining each of those competitive forces. Okay? Now, I don't know how many of you remember Miss Turnage, who was here, and she taught computer science. Miss Turnage had probably, she taught this course because she lived this course. She worked for Walmart's world headquarters IT operation. There is no one better than them. Their inventory control systems, their costing systems, their supply chain systems, human HR systems, all of those things are unbelievable because it is a massive, gigantic company. And they've been able to leverage their knowledge about product sales to have a basic store design, but to tweak every single store they have in terms of items that are sold. They can do a lot of product testing. because they have the scale to do it. So Walmart, they're one of those folks who have mastered the use of these technologies. And that's how they're able to operate at the scope they do. The next time you're here, go over to the Walmart there off of 40. Walk through there and ask yourself, how many products are in here and where do they come from? And how do they manage to keep these shelves full? And trust me, they're off now using artificial intelligence to look at customer data, figure out what people want to buy, how to stock stores, etc. And they've used IT and information systems as their leverage to handle things even like staffing their stores. If you're an associate and you work for them, let's say you got to work in the Oklahoma City area, they'll have an area of 20, maybe 20, 30 miles where they will assign you to, these are your stores, and we need you over here today, we need you over here tomorrow, we need you over here the day after, but we need you here most days. That means you're really just killing people because you've got employees in there when you need them. So you don't have that problem of ramping up for the crush of people. You're almost literally load balancing out the system with your associates. That's how you and I can go in there and buy stuff and pay prices far cheaper than we could. And I understand about local merchants, and I understand all that stuff. I get it. I've got it. I understand it. And I understand Walmart's been a destructive force, but they have used technology, information systems, and they've used Porter's model to really, really, really build their strategic acumen, particularly in things like in terms of the low-cost leadership, and that's their basic strategy. They sell stuff so cheaply, it's not even funny. And now, you can get stuff delivered, or you can go pick it up. Here's another way where they've augmented that process. So this Porter model works really, really good. Now, one of these is this table 3.3 has something quite insightful for you. And I want you to take a look at the table there. And they give an example of new products and services that they use to provide a competitive advantage. This is Amazon, Apple, the golf club, and PayPal handling transactions. Each of these have used a piece of an MIS to build a competitive advantage. PayPal says you can bypass the bank. You don't have to mess with Bank of America. We'll handle your transaction right here. And since they do, we'll collect the fee and not Bank of America. And so Bank of America says, oh, we got to do something to handle this because PayPal's just killing us. If you lived in countries in the Orient, particularly say in Asia, particularly China, the Chinese use a lot of what we call fintech kinds of products. PayPal is a big one because the people literally bury their money in the ground or in a mattress because they don't want to put it in the bank because they're afraid the government will take it from them. And, the Chinese government's kind of got a reputation for strong-arming people. So if you've made a few million and you've got some hard currency, you're not going to put it in the bank of China. You're not going to do it for a simple reason. They may confiscate it. They can do that if they care to. So you can see where each of these have built a competitive advantage, each of these firms. I'll give you a good example of this. This is a personal example. It's a lady that went to high school with me, and she works for a hedge fund group that does nothing but look for new drugs, and that's all they do. And so they're out there scouring the FDA, internet traffic, etc., always looking for some firm that's developed a new drug to deal with cancer or diabetes or whatever. And they walk in and say to them, we'll walk you through the process of development and getting approvals. We're venture capitalists, okay? And so they spend all of their time looking for those opportunities. And when they hit a home run, they hit a home run. When they don't hit a home run, they go, okay, let's find the next firm or the next unicorn. We talked a lot about unicorns. That term comes from Silicon Valley, where folks are always looking for a firm that has something really different. Think about the new companies that have arisen just in the time you've been alive. Uber, you call somebody and they come pick you up. Airbnb, StubHub, Grubhub. There's all kinds of apps out there. You order food and people deliver it from you from, I don't know what the app is or the name of the company, but they'll deliver it from many of the fast food people. And on and on and on. Travelocity, my goodness. Those folks have all used one piece of an information system to build a competitive advantage and thus get a foothold in the industry before everybody else comes in and starts barging in on them. I had an interesting experience. So this has been about, well, the first time I was up for a conference, this has been a long time ago, and I went to a tour of Silicon Valley and then a tour of the Napa Valley. Silicon Valley was just starting to emerge, but Napa Valley, which is where all the people out there make wines and champagnes and so forth, that was quite a thing. And I went to one of those firms, and they were showing us how they make champagne, and they turn it so that they get a certain level of carbonation and aging with the bottles. Okay, and it was Corbel. And since I visited there for about 5 or 6 years after that, they'd send me a voucher for a bottle of champagne. Champagne just is fascinating to me. I don't drink it, but it's fascinating to me how it's made. And they'd have a little notch on a wooden thing down in the cellar. And you had Grandpa who'd been there 75 years who knew. And so when Grandpa dies, a lot of Grandpa's knowledge is gone. I went back out there, it's been a few years, and they now have everything is automated. All the bottles are turned. They have this bottle, and we were going through the tour, and one of the product managers said, now this bottle will be ready for sale as a 25-year-old champagne someday. And all of them had a machine that just turned it ever so slightly and stopped. And because they had hundreds and hundreds of these, you'd see, not all of them were turning at the same time, but you'd see through, it was just the most amazing thing. And they used sensors to look at the soil content, how much moisture does it have, et cetera, et cetera. They use tasters, but one of the things and this is the guy that did their quality control lady, in fact, she said, they have people who still taste the stuff, who have the art of that, but they also now have a little device they can put into a glass. It's poured from one of those, and it will give them chemical readouts and properties that they compare with stuff they did the old way to see how much it matches. It's amazing, all the ways that this is happening. Well, I think I've probably beaten this to death, but if you really, all I can say is that this whole idea of management information systems and their strategic value, we're seeing firms adopt this competitive forces model and apply it to information systems just as they have in general. And the authors do a good job here of talking about the impact of the internet and those forces and what it's doing. And then, of course, they walk you through this very figure 3.8, and they walk you through how they enhance the firm's value chain using information systems. And you can see the human resources, the technology, and they're dealing with procurement, messaging systems. So when I say this is a hard course for me to teach, it is because I kind of have to take you up out in the stars there instead of the broad, and then I have to kind of focus you down on a little tiny bit of something, but to see. But that's the part about this that's so fascinating, is we're really just not quite sure where it's all going to end up. Now, here's something interesting for you to digest. One of the jobs most likely to be eliminated by artificial intelligence within the next 25 years is the financial planner. Big companies now that do financial planning for folks that sell them, security, or sell them portfolios, etc. Those jobs will be gone. You might have one person who is the head of a unit, but these artificial intelligence systems are getting so sophisticated and so good at what they do that they're able to build a portfolio far better than most human beings. And when I read that, I thought, I don't believe it. And so I asked myself, okay, what will our grads do? And what do they need to know? And what will their prospects be if they've not gotten themselves geared up to work in that kind of environment, to write the programming and to understand the script or to understand artificial intelligence, much less what's going to happen when this thing of blockchain technology hits the United States and all the regulatory stuff gets cleaned out. Those technologies are going to really have a big impact. If Google can build a car that can drive around for 1 million miles and maybe have one fender bender, if you don't think they can't put a portfolio together, you and I are pretty naive. And other people, my job, for example, will change radically. I'm at the end of my career, and that's obvious. And many of you I know are saying you should have never started it. I understand that. But I know for a fact that in the future that my role will be much, much, much different than it is now. One of these days, this will probably be your grandkids if you send them here to school. And if the school's here, you'll go into Canvas or whatever they're using, and that software will diagnose how they learn best. And then the entire course will be tailored to them. I can't do that. I can't even dream to do that. I can give you assignments that I can say, well, choose one of these two cases that makes sense to you. I can't even approach that. And there are some learning management systems now that you can plug into, and they're still being developed, that you can plug in, and they will assess your learning skills and thus assess where they need to start you in the course. I was in here today with a bunch of freshmen and then some CIS people. I was in here for BISS 1103, the first tech course. I had a mixture of people. Some people in there looked so scared they were about to look like they were petrified. Other people were going, as I was going through introducing to Excel. And I knew some of them had used Excel for a long time. Others, this is a new world. I got a few of them in there that can't even upload a file. They're learning how to do that. I have to try to cover all of that. And frankly, at a certain point, I got to go, hey, I can or I can't. So that's one of the dilemmas that I have. And we're going to see more and more of those kinds of diagnostic tools that are there that will walk you through. You guys, if you've ever, any of you who've been to the Learning Center or any of their stuff, that you'll hear them talk a lot about learning styles. And trust me, those things are real, and we haven't even begun to really track what we can do with them. Well, I've gone on and on about this, but this marriage of Porter's competitive strategy, those forces with management information systems and understanding what those systems can do, have really changed how companies can build their strategy for their companies to meet their short-term objectives and then begin to plan for the long term. Okay, and I would say this, anytime we hire someone now, I ask the question, have you done any programming? Why? Well, because everything I see in your field, they're doing programming. Every time I go over and take a look to see, well, when they teach marketing at MIT, what are they doing? They're doing all this stuff that collects all this big data and analyzes about customers. And I'm going, whoa, are we there? Or finance, or management, or even what we're doing here. What we're doing here with these BISS courses was at one time cutting edge. Not anymore. We're still a little bit ahead of the norm, and we're still a little bit ahead of most business skills, but a lot of them are waking up to the fact that technology is this force, and we have yet to really come to grips with understanding how it operates and what to do with it. Well, listen, I've gone on for quite a while, folks, and I appreciate that. I hope, and I would say, if anything, read this section on Porter's competitive forces, and that is, I think, going to be of some great value to you. And this question of trust and big data is one, and then you've got a choice between MD3, the management decision problem 3.8 or 3.9. See, that's how I'm trying to tailor it to your needs, which is a poor way to do it, but that's all I've got to do. That's all I have. I can look at your high script transcripts. They tell me a little bit, but not what I really need to see and know and to understand. And so that's just going to be one of those types of things that, one of these days when I'm dead and gone, someone else is in here, they'll look back at how we taught college here and go, how did they do that? And that's the feeling I had when I first came here for my first faculty meeting. And I was really recruited to come here. And I said, I don't know if I fit. I fit in terms of my beliefs, but I've been working in heavy duty with technology, and I see where it's going to take this industry. Okay. Well, my first faculty meeting, the man who was the chairman of our faculty council is a very wonderful person. Pulled out his overhead slides and began to put them on the overhead projector one by one by one. And I thought, I'm either dreaming, or I'm hallucinating, or I really didn't transfer from here, and they've kept me a prisoner and woke me up 40 years later because I'm seeing the one. And I thought, and his statement was, I don't use PowerPoint or any of that stuff. I don't even use a computer. He finally started using an Apple and discovered, this is not too bad. But that was after he left. Well, thank you so much for your time, folks. And you got these assignments. Any questions? Too late to add drop? Not if you pay a fee. Thank you much.